You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, quick reminder to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/rangemindedpodcast, where you can get the latest on everything going on with us, and you can give us some feedback and even suggest an episode. This is episode 40, a Steve Free episode, where we talk with Sarah VanAcker, instructor and inventory manager here at Independence Indoor Shooting. She's also one half of the Independent Woman, the all-female shooting club hosted here at the shop. Sarah is a true wealth of knowledge as an instructor, and we talk about all kinds of things. Everything from how she got into shooting handguns to what specific challenges women face in both the shooting sports and with concealed carry. This is a great episode, so without further ado, we hope you enjoy episode number 40 of Range Minded, The Independent Woman with Sarah VanAcker. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. We are on episode number 40, and my name is Mark Long.
My name is Rick Kastner. Now, Jessica was telling us we need to give a little blurb, too. We can't just say our names.
Oh, man. We're going to have Jessica on the podcast now so she can tell us how to run things.
Yeah. So I'm Rick Kastner, the Academy Director at Independence Indoor Shooting.
I'm Sarah VanAcker, and I do many things at Independence Indoor Shooting.
And now...
Oh, she's our resident cool person.
Yeah, and you are our special guest of today. We're joined by Sarah VanAcker, special guest here, instructor and, is it inventory?
Inventory, shipping.
Yeah, so she handles all the back end stuff, how the guns get in and into and out of Independence.
All the guns go through
very,
me.
very important person.
It's power.
I have to say thank you because Sarah was able to help me late last year. I had a recall on my PPS. And I didn't want to go through the hassle of shipping it with FedEx and everything, even though that Walther gave me a shipping label and everything. And Sarah was like, "Well, I'll help you out. I can ship it for you." So
is this what Steve always teases you about?
Yeah, about the PPS recall. It's fine now. No big deal.
Everything's okay.
What was the recall for?
Something with the trigger. It was. I think you could depress the trigger without the safety blade being depressed. So
yeah, I remember.
So, but Sarah was instrumental in helping me with that, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
We are lucky to have Sarah.
Yeah, and you are also a wealth of information with shooting and instructing. How long have you been an instructor?
Just over a year now.
Okay, so relatively new.
Yep.
But how long have you been in the shooting sports, kind of involved with that?
Shooting sports altogether, probably about 14 years.
Oh, wow.
And handguns exclusively about little over 3.
Okay.
So not terribly long, but...
I mean, 14 years is a long time.
Well, 14 with the long guns and everything, that's long, but...
Right.
New with the handguns.
Because you're big,
New-ish.
You're big into hunting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Big hunter.
So obviously then long guns, rifles, and all that, and shotguns probably to a degree.
Yes, my husband is actually a long-range hunting instructor, so...
Very cool.
With who?
With Mike Perkins. Oh, with Crosshair's Long Range Hunting School.
Yeah. So they get Mike Perkins and your husband, actually, they just recently went to New Zealand.
Yeah, they've been going to New Zealand and doing classes there the past few years, 3 or 4 years. And this year, I'm not sure if they're still going, but that's been a big deal for them. And I got to go last year. That was amazing.
And did hunting over there.
I hunted over there.
What did you? Was it a red stag?
Red stag.
Nice.
Yes, that was a great trip. Fantastic.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, to be able to go all the way to the other side of the world and do something you love and in a whole new environment. Because I imagine just the landscape and windage and everything
it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was the most. I didn't want to leave. As soon as I landed, I said I could live here. And my husband was all for that. So
hey, retirement plan.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Very cool. So
it's hard. It's hard to become a resident of New Zealand.
Have you looked into this?
They're very picky. I have a brother-in-law who's a New Zealander. So my sister is now, too, because she got married. But yeah, it's really, really hard. Yeah, I mean, because they're a tiny island.
It's surprising. So, one of my best friends from back home actually lives in Switzerland, and he's a Swiss citizen now, but it took him a long time to get all that squared away and everything. It makes you kind of appreciate that how sometimes how easy it can be to become a citizen in the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah. So, although I'm not an expert on that, but it's interesting to see how to get citizenship in different countries or whatever. So, but also I forgot you are the other half of the Independent Woman program we have here at Independence. Tell us a little bit about just kind of a general overview of Independent Woman.
Independent Woman is basically just a I want to call it a club, I guess. We get together Monday mornings and Thursday afternoon or evenings, and it's just a place for women to meet who all love to shoot. We meet for an hour, and then we shoot for an hour, and we go over some sort of instruction. We talk about whatever subject we've picked that day, and Jessica works with me, and it's a very fun. I keep wanting to call it a class because everything I do is a class, but it's a very fun meeting space because we get so many different women from so many different areas, and their perspectives and views on everything are bringing them all together. It's fun to see the dynamics, and they're so happy to have a group of women to shoot with. Then we give them a little bit of discounts. They pay a monthly, not a monthly, a yearly, very low fee, and they come in and they get to shoot for an hour and maybe learn something, and it's pretty awesome. We've been doing it
since September.
Yeah.
September 12th, I think, was the launch date.
Ricky put it together. It was amazing. Jessica and I just kind of threw ourselves into it. Yeah. And
now you guys are running the show.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It's quite a bit of work, but the ladies are fantastic and they help out a lot, and it's really nice to have that place for them to go to, because shooting for women is a little bit different. We're social creatures, and we don't really want to shoot alone, so having that group it's nice to have.
Yeah, as I RSO the women shoot, in case anybody didn't know.
We appreciate you greatly.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. But being able to watch, the folks in the class get really excited about, you've got a couple people who have kind of like teams almost. They come in as two people, and they share a lane and they go back and forth. I think there's like a mother-daughter, a couple of mother-daughter couples, and then some friends, old friends, and almost, I think people have also made friends in the class, which is really cool to see. And just the enthusiasm that they have for shooting and shooting well and wanting to improve is actually pretty inspiring. Every time that I'm RSOing that class, it's like, man, I want to shoot. I need to have Jessica and Sarah teach me how to shoot, because a lot of these ladies can outshoot me.
Well, they're so enthusiastic about it, and they're very excited to share with the new ladies. It's really fun to see when there's a new woman there and she's nervous, just new to the shooting sports, and all these women will shoot this gun, we'll shoot this, we'll here do this, I've had this same problem, and it's just such a welcoming environment that it's wonderful to see. We don't have to dictate to people what they need to do or anything. It's just a very warm, welcoming environment for them to come to, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and you and Jessica are kind of like the fire and ice duo, because you're a little more soft-spoken, but I mean, you can shoot very, very well. I've seen it happen. And you've got, like I said, you've got a wealth of knowledge, but Jessica's kind of the more like, she'll get in with people and, hey, how you doing? You need to do this or whatever. She's very like,
yeah, she's got that like military background.
Yeah.
So she jumps right in there, where I'm more of I'll approach you when you look like you need the help.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing too, is that you, during the shoot, you go in and can instruct people. Yeah. Instruct some women if they need it, or they have like a membership, I think. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. For $30 a month, you will get we meet 4 times a month, once a week. So with the $30 a month, that gives more instruction. So we'll set up a lesson plan for you to follow specifically with any goals or problems that you're having. You get a special link on our website to go to follow your lesson plan and make sure you're following along as you see fit. And it's really a great thing for new shooters who are kind of uncertain of their shooting, but don't necessarily have the time or money to spend, $75 an hour on a one-on-one instruction, but don't want to take a class. So to have that, to be able to meet up with a woman and do a special lesson plan, give them shooting drills and what not to do on their own in between meeting times, it's extremely beneficial. It's something that they can cancel also. It's not something they're committed to.
Right.
We're not going to force you to pay $30 a month for a year you will learn shooting.
Yeah, well, I've seen the improvement in some of the women where their groups just get tighter and tighter a little bit every week, and they get a little bit better and better. Yeah. And I hear you and Jessica going back and forth and telling people what they need to fix, and spending some good quality time with them to make sure that they're shooting better and that they're more comfortable. And it really is cool to see kind of week by week. So
it's fun. It's really fun to watch the progress and watch how much more comfortable they become with their guns. I love it.
And I only really see the shooting portion, but tell us a little bit about the classroom, because you do something a little different every week.
Every week we do a different, we pick a different subject. We've done holsters, situational awareness, just kind of whatever we find pertains to shooting. Usually we lean towards concealed carry and defensive tactics, things of that sort. And Jessica and I will just go over it usually for about half the class, and then the rest is all discussion. And getting a group of women to discuss any of this stuff is not a challenge. There's a lot of questions, which is great. This environment allows women to not feel intimidated about the questions that they have. So it's just fantastic. It's always a really quick class because they have questions and we get to answer, and it's fun. We laugh a lot. We have some characters in some of our groups.
Yeah, so that's true.
It's pretty entertaining. we love it. It's just a great way to learn something really quick and get out there and shoot.
Yeah. So how did you get into instructing? Like you said, it's been about a year, but you really, it sounds like you've taken it and run with it. How did you kind of get involved with that?
Well, the instructing was kind of thrown at me, Ricky. I started at Independence when we opened. It was over a year and a half ago, just as inventory shipping. And I thought instruction would be interesting. I had the knowledge and the training behind me, but I thought I would be too nervous. I'm a very shy, quiet person, so I wasn't sure how I would handle it, but I thought it was an important thing to have a woman teaching women's classes. I remember my first basic pistol class and how it just changed my life. I mean, it brought me here, and it was just so empowering, that basic pistol class and the concealed weapons class after that. And then just training beyond that. It was amazing. It changed everything. And to be able to teach the classes that start that fire for some women it's fantastic. So the first class Ricky threw me into, he almost literally threw me into it. He said, "You're just going to have to do it. You're just going to have to see." I went in there and started. You did
shadow Jim, though.
I did. I watched a few to make sure I didn't just bumble in there and start blathering about silly things.
But right afterward, you started changing the curriculum to meet the needs of women.
Yeah,
versus a male teaching females. There's a loss of communication.
Well, it was fun for me, and it was almost a dare. I took my NRA certification. I was certified, and during that course, I was explaining to someone why I thought that teaching women would be different than teaching men. And I was explaining why, and the person was arguing that there's no differences, and the men and women have the same issues, and it shouldn't be a problem, and basically kind of poo-pooing my ideas. But it is different. It's very different. And having the women's classes is a different dynamic. It's a different environment. I've seen the co-ed classes where women are afraid to ask questions, and they're waiting for their husband or whoever they're with. They almost always come with somebody else in the co-ed classes. They're intimidated there. You can see it. They don't interact nearly as much. And in these women's classes, they're not afraid.
They don't laugh.
Yeah.
And our instructors are really good, like Jim and Bill and Leroy, the ones that teach the co-ed classes and just regular co-ed classes. But they're really, they're funny.
Absolutely. Like, they're fantastic instructors. But
it is hard for women they hold back, like you're saying.
Regardless of because they are fantastic instructors and they can bring anybody out of their shell, but the dynamic between a husband and wife taking a class together is very different than when the wife comes in alone. They will ask many, many questions, and they always apologize. It's so funny. They quit saying you're sorry. I'm sorry to be asking this. It's okay. It relaxes them knowing that this issue that they're having, this question that they have, is something that all the other women have or have had. And that first class I taught, it just started pouring out. It ended up being very easy for me, and I was so happy at the end of that class because the women were thrilled and they were smiling as they walked out the door, and they felt so much better, and they were glowing as they left. And it was amazing to be part of that. And I remember how that felt. So that started it, and now I'm just excited to keep teaching and just learn more myself and keep going. I love it.
Yeah, one of the things too that I've noticed is all the willingness to learn and the safety consciousness. Mm-hmm. If I have to go correct somebody, say, hey, make sure your slide's open or bring your bag up, to I'm so sorry. Like it's when you said the apologize thing, that's what ran through my mind. But then it's usually I only tell them once and never have to worry about it again. Yeah, which is cool because I think with some males or just some folks that maybe come in or whatever, where it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I was blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, whatever. I don't care. You have to listen to and do it safely or else you're not going to shoot here, And I've never had that problem in the women's shoots, which is great. So, and you could tell, from doing classes and then doing RSOing the independent woman shoots, it's fun. There's a more kind of a fun vibe. Like, not to say that the classes, the regular classes aren't fun. They're, like you said, Leroy and Jim and Bill can get anybody out of their shells. Yeah. But there's just a community there that's being built in the independent woman group that I think is doing really well. And
what do you think? Like you've taken classes from a lot of male instructors.
Yes.
More male instructors.
Mostly males, yes.
Yeah. So when you're going through these classes and you're instructing, or you're on the receiving end when you're in a class that Jessica's teaching, what is the difference in dynamic when you have a male teaching women versus a female teaching women? Go ahead.
Instructor wise, it's hard to say. I think the women are just, I couldn't pinpoint it exactly. The men are much more black and white by the book, where the women will address the little issues on the sides that kind of plague us down the road. The issues with slides and slide locks and arthritis and things of that sort. And I couldn't tell you specifically without going and doing some studying the absolute differences, but I've found myself more comfortable. Jessica was actually my instructor for a long time, and it was just the rapport. I was more comfortable with a woman. It was more like working with a friend rather than just working with an instructor, a stranger that I'm paying to show me how to do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, actually, it was funny. She was preparing for a class. I can't remember. I think it was the independent woman, but she talked about like doing a class to where, you're talking about everything, even how to go to the bathroom when you have a holster on.
It's
and
an issue.
I was like, what in the world? I've never heard that before. I've never even thought of it. But then I carry appendix. Yeah. And the other day I had a guy, and I was like, oh yeah, I carry appendix. And I've actually caught myself a couple times now since Jessica brought that up, of like, guys, they're giving me kind of a weird look, and they're like, but how do you, and I'm like, oh, how do you go to the bathroom? Well, it's really easy, you just like, and then I'm like, I'm not trying to get gross, but like, and it's a real thing. Like when you think about, like, I talk about the ulti clips that we have that really clips. They really grab onto your pants and your belt versus the generic
clips,
generic clips that come with the holster. Because just taking your holster off, you have to if you're going to go to the bathroom, you have to take your gun off.
It's a process.
Put it on a toilet paper dispenser and hope you don't walk away without it.
Exactly.
And versus having the ulti clip, you keep it on your pants. And so it's I hate sounding like saying this over the radio, but
being
for real,
crude.
Yeah, but for real, it's an issue, and
it is an issue, and the women aren't afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do? Because it comes up. What do you do when you go to the bathroom? Because going to the bathroom for us is much more of a process than it is for you guys.
Yeah.
And what do I do with my purse? What do I do if I'm carrying, here, wherever my gun is? What if I have my kids? What if I'm pregnant? All kinds of stuff and I think guys, it's not so much that they don't have the same problems. Obviously, they don't have the issue of being pregnant and having to carry, but they have the same general questions, but I don't think they ask.
No, well, and that's the experience. So I'm guessing, like, if you talk about something like that in a whole classroom full of women, they're all going to be like, I know, I had that question. Yeah. If I were to pose that question as an instructor in the front of a class, say all males, it's going to be different. You might have one, they might make a, a kind of joke, but
I think they're not conditioned to feel like they already need to know this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not going to come up. So there's certain things that if women are in the co-ed classes, which there is a time and place for it, and I think it's totally appropriate, but they have to know that going into a co-ed class, there's some things that are important to them that may not be addressed because the instructor just doesn't even think to address it.
Yeah. It's interesting, the different dynamics and challenges with the co-ed versus all women. I think women, just when we get all grouped together, we tend to just start talking, and that results in all the questions. And I agree with you completely. Co-ed classes they're not a bad thing, but it's just a different dynamic is all. And some women like the co-ed classes better. They like being in that environment because that's how the world is. It's a co-ed world. So
and I found a lot of women are like, I don't need this girl stuff. But I think that they've more conditioned themselves to the environment, and I'm like, it's a force for good, and you're going to get a lot of quality out of there if you're and I know this is not politically correct for the time and season in which we live, but your gender, where it's good to be in a course with just that same gender, because there's specific things that are gonna come out, like we were saying. Sure. And so saying, I'm a girl and I can take a class with a bunch of girls, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't say you're I think some women, they struggle, and at least this is the way I see it is they struggle to go to an all-female class because they see that as getting babied.
Yeah, we're going to soften it up somehow. But no, it's instructed exactly the same, and it's just we address the different issues a little deeper because just of our physical stature and whatnot, it's just different. Our questions are different. Most of us are completely new to the shooting sports period. A lot of them, the women in my class, have never touched a gun. Some of the women in the class come in literally with the box that, someone bought this gun for them and they want to learn how to use it. They have no idea. So it's just different for everyone.
Yeah. And you talked about concealed carry a little bit too. I mean, even just, physical differences between men and women, you got to carry it, possibly a different way.
It's so much more challenging for women, I believe. Someone might argue with me for that, but there's so many different shapes and sizes. We always laugh in our holster class. It's kind of like buying a pair of jeans. It's a traumatic experience for most women, and getting the holsters and the concealed carry right it's right along those lines. It's frustrating, and so to be able to have a resource, it's like the independent women where we do the holster classes and show women the holsters available to them and answer the questions. It's awesome to have, because otherwise, if you don't take the class and you're doing nothing but internet research, there's just going to be good and bad information out there, and you're not going to have that, well, this is what I did, and be able to talk to someone who's your same stature or had the same issues and get their advice, their feedback. So I think having the class and the independent women, the club, it's fantastic.
What do you go ahead.
Well, I'm probably going to take it off the topic you were going to talk about, and you're the man, so but I'm curious as far as to dive into concealed carry for women. What options are there?
There are so many options. We have the purses, which Jessica and I both agree we're not big fans of the purses because it's not on your body. It's there's always that chance, and we've had women in the independent women actually say, "Oh, I almost left my purse here, and it was terrifying." You know, what do you do if you leave your purse somewhere and your gun's in it? And there's been instances of kids grabbing guns out of purses, and bad things happen. So we're not huge fans of those, but there's so many options. There's corset holsters. There's, tank tops that you can stick a gun in here and there. And we like to go over that and talk about the good and the bad points of everything. Because the women do see something clever like the tank tops or the wraps or something that's not necessarily the safest or most convenient thing to wear. And we address, it's cool and it makes sense. It's definitely concealed, but what are you going to do when you're being robbed and you need that gun right away? You're going to reach into your shirt and pull out that.
You have to come up with or you have to raise the issue of accessibility.
Yeah.
As maybe nobody be able to see it or get to it, but that means you might not be able to get to it either. Yeah. So
all kinds of issues. Well, and then there's all of us are different shapes and sizes. I'm a thin person, so carrying for me is a challenge because I print with just about anything I carry. Bigger women have a harder time finding holsters that fit comfortably and where you can access everything correctly. Tiny women have the same issues. I have my new 365, my SIG P365, and I bought this fancy new appendix holster for it. I was so excited, and I wore it. After about 10 minutes, I decided I hated it because every time I sat down, it would pinch my thigh because just the way women's pants are designed, they're so low that there's no way that holster would fit me comfortably, and it was painful. By the end of the day, I had a sore on my leg from that stupid thing digging into me.
Did I tell you I haven't shown you my holster, have I?
I don't think so.
I fabricated a new design.
Ricky's got a jerry-rigged duct tape appendix holster with styrofoam and
but it was the same.
It's the dumpster special.
I think we were talking about that on one episode. But when I first started carrying appendix, it was after the NRA Carry Guard that I did in August, and I just fell in love with the actual how quick it was, how accessible it was. But I took a regular holster and tried to carry appendix, and it killed my leg. Like it was.
It's just not comfortable.
Yeah, but then I put some. There's a holster manufacturer out there called Keepers Concealment, and they do this foam wedge for appendix. It's all appendix carry. But they do this foam wedge, which it actually brings it out away from your thigh. So if that gun were to inexplicably go off by itself, which shouldn't ever happen, but it's not pointed toward your body at any point, so it's away from your body. But that foam wedge makes it really comfortable.
But does it poke out? I'm thinking
No, you wouldn't really notice it too much because of the way your body is. It's digging in already, so it's just kind of making it more level. So I just kind of took that concept and duct taped a whole bunch of foam around it. It's ugly, but I mean, it's a concealed carry holster, and you don't see it. It's not meant to look pretty. But actually, now I would be curious for you to try it again, because I heard from some other instructors, high-end instructors, that a lot of women are doing appendix.
I would love to be able to carry appendix. Just
I'll have to show
accessibility would be fantastic.
I'll have to charge though for you to see my holster.
I'm excited. Jesus. Maybe I'll pay.
It's only like $100 or something like that.
Well, what I was going to say was that not only are men and women built differently, and there's a lot of different shapes and sizes, but traditionally women wear more form-fitting clothes, no matter what size you are.
Absolutely.
And that, us guys. So I grew up in a house full of women. Like my family is pretty much all women, and so I have said forever that it's way harder to be a woman than a man, and maybe not harder is the right word, but just more hassle, more stuff you have to think about, more you got to deal with. And so like guys, I'm wearing a loose t-shirt and loose jeans and a plaid shirt over it, but it's all loose, and you can never tell that I'm not carrying concealed today, or carrying appendix today. So switch back to
Did you switch?
Just for today.
Oh, okay.
I sometimes go back and forth.
Just wanted to change it up.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little more comfortable because I know I'd be sitting for a long time. So.
Yeah. Yep.
See, my fabrication. I've fallen asleep in my gun before. For real, it's comfortable. Anyway,
but Ricky's wearing a looser fitting, polo shirt. But I mean, women just traditionally wear more tighter fitting clothes, so you have to worry about printing a little bit more.
Yeah, and in the summer it's...
Oh yeah, because sleeveless shirts or tank tops, like you said. How do you overcome that kind of stuff?
I've had to. I would like to say that you don't have to change anything in order to concealed carry, but I had to change some of my wardrobe from going to form fitting to more drapey tops. Nothing. I don't have to, wear a muumuu or anything like that.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a big dress, basically.
Okay.
It's just drape your clothing. Wear clothing that's going to cover your waist area a little bit more. And they make, I don't wear yoga pants out in public, but I know a lot of women that do, and they're making yoga pants that are for concealed carry now. So there's that option. And then again,
then you get into the issue of that trigger not necessarily being covered with a hard shell like Kydex or leather.
That's what we impress upon the women when they're carrying like that, is to always have some sort of trigger guard fashioned in there. You always need to have that trigger covered, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to absentmindedly reach back and stick your finger in there.
Or a branch from the bush you're working around snags that trigger and
take a tumble or something like that. So
you just kind of have to assume that trigger will be pulled if you don't have a guard on it. So definitely keep it covered. But there are a lot more options. The Ulti Clip is awesome because you can attach it to just about any holster, and that helps tremendously with our wardrobe issues. But summertime, it is a challenge. Winter, it's nice because you throw on a jacket and you're good to go. But
and I think guys, so I have the same issue probably as what you guys would have, is athletic clothing. So I think about when I'm mountain biking or something like that. I mean, sometimes I might still want to conceal carry, but you have a waistband that just has spandex. You don't have a belt around it.
Yeah, that's the yoga pant issue.
Yeah, and so if you're running, those pants are going right down to your ankles. So if you have a gun on it, so that's hard.
Yeah, once you decide to concealed carry, wardrobe buying clothes becomes a whole new...
You're a lot more conscious of it.
Yes. And even concealed carrying while you're trying on clothes, that's a challenge too. That's along the bathroom issue. What do you do with your gun when you're changing clothes in the changing room? It's
an interesting challenge. Yeah. It's funny because I think there are a lot of similarities, between the issues that men and women deal with concealed carry, but it's just different specifics and how you have to handle it. So, and we talked about women are a lot more apt to bring it up in a group of women, than I think guys are. I think, like you said, men are more, we'll figure it out as we go along or whatever, or, deal with the problem as it comes up. But women are a lot more detail oriented, I think I've noticed. And then you can understand a lot more situations, that are like, okay, what do I do in this situation? Or what about this? And a lot more thoughtful.
It's a huge decision as a woman to become a concealed carrier, and that's most women that I've encountered they're so analytical, and they research it and research it and research it. So by the time they get to the class or take the concealed carry class, they have a million questions because there's a million things that have gone through their mind about what might happen and what are they going to do during this scenario. And I went through a lot of scenario training when I was training a lot, and that was
and you did
so
this
helpful.
Independently of your husband.
Yes,
you just decided to do
absolutely, and that was what made it fun, is that he had nothing to do with it. I'm sure he would have participated had I asked him, but I enjoyed it so much learning on my own.
So what was it about that first basic pistol class? Because like you said, you'd been around long guns and hunting for years and years. And then, you said 3 years ago or so, you made the switch over to handguns. What was it about that first class that kind of just flipped a switch for you?
Well, my husband was gone a lot on trips, business trips and stuff. And I have 4 kids at home, and I took that basic pistol class, and I learned everything about the handgun. My handgun experience previously had been my husband handing me a gun. I would shoot it a few times at a soda can or whatever, and then I would hand it back to him gingerly because I had no idea what I was doing. And it was scary because on a rifle, the safety is obvious. It's usually in the same spot on every gun. It's all very obvious and easy. It was easy for me. And then but the handgun was a big scary thing. And basically the only thing I knew about handguns is what I saw on TV and kind of heard here and there from, other sources. And so it was this big scary item, and I was super intimidated by it. But after that first class, my best friend convinced me to take this class, and learning that it's not this beast that's going to go off as soon as you place it on the table, or go off if it's dropped or anything, and being able to know how to work it and use it, and it became a tool. It was like a light switch went on. It was fantastic.
And that's great. Just to bring that up, it's crazy, and it makes sense that, you, like you said, you've been around rifles and long guns for so long, and obviously you were safe with them, but you were confident with them, right? You were very confident with going out and hunting and shooting and all that. But just to make the switch over to handguns was, it was a bit of an uncomfortable transition until you got the training and everything. Yeah. I think that's interesting, because I think some people just lump all guns together, but even making the switch back and forth, or to going from rifles to handguns, people don't necessarily think about that. Yeah.
And they're definitely different. There's a lot of things to think about on both sides, but yeah, once I had that knowledge of the handguns, and after my knowledge surpassed my husband's, that was another glowing point for me. And he was kind of like, yeah, I think I'm just going to let you do the handguns. He kind of backed off, and he never tried to show me anything after that, because he knew I didn't need that from him. And that's awesome. To be able to learn that on my own and go through the training without any prompting or, you need to do this. It was awesome.
Well, you're the resident expert then.
So glad I did it. Yeah, I am. Now I have more handguns than he does, and he's happy to support that addiction that I've developed.
What is? Have you found an overarching theme to why the women in your classes are getting into the shooting sports? Is there one specific reason, or is it just everything under the sun?
There's a lot of different reasons, but I would say the main one is they want to protect themselves. They want to protect their family. They want to basically take the reins, and they've realized that maybe someone's not going to come save them in certain instances. A lot of the women have husbands who travel, or they're single, or they're in an empty house, they have kids. Great majority of the women who have been taking the classes are empty nesters, and there's no one home, and they want to know what to do if a bad situation arrives. And you see so many stories on TV now of bad things happening to people who are completely helpless, and so they're taking the initiative and being proactive and getting out there and learning how to handle a gun. They don't want to have to use it in defense, but they want to know, and if that situation arrives, that they can handle it.
So, and you kind of hit on it. I'm curious, because the shooting sports has been predominantly male dominated for a long time, pretty much from the inception of firearms. But now you're seeing one of the quickest growths is through the women.
Yeah, we're coming in droves.
Yeah, what has changed? Is it that less marriages, and I'm going to get a little bit more political, but is it because less marriages are staying together? There's less, the husbands aren't staying with the family necessarily because they have these jobs that take them away. Is that kind of what's changing, or is it just I don't think so. I think it's just...
I couldn't tell you specifically what's happened. A lot of it is marketing, but I don't know. The women have just decided to take the reins. I don't think it has to do anything with husbands being gone more. I think it just has a lot more to do with women wanting to take care of themselves. There's a lot of feminists out there who, they don't want a guy to have to take care of everything. There's a story I like to tell the women about you don't know what's going to happen in any sort of situation. Once that adrenaline dump happens, you don't know unless you've actually experienced that, someone breaking into your house or something. But it was my hairdresser actually told me this story of a friend of hers that somebody broke into their home. They heard the breaking glass in their sliding glass door, and the woman, the wife, they had a son sleeping downstairs, a young son, and she flew down the stairs, was turning on lights, going to go protect him, and she came back upstairs, and the husband was on the phone with 911 just repeatedly shouting the zip code, because he just went he just went blank, and that's all he could.
He froze up, kind of
totally
thing.
Froze and was just yelling zip code into the phone to the poor 911 operator. So it really surprised her, because she didn't think she thought the husband would be the one to, leap into action and be the superhero, but it was her. And they flipped roles. And I think more and more women are realizing that they're not going to be rescued. We don't need to be protected. We need to protect ourselves. And there's so many situations where we're left exposed and vulnerable, and we need to be ready. We need that situational awareness and being able to know what to do in a terrible situation. It's very empowering. It's a good feeling to know that you can take care of yourself.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or anything. Your safety is your own responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially because, even if you're married or you're together, you're single or whatever, you still have to go do life and do things on your own, whether that's grocery shopping or regular shopping or go out into the world. I mean, even driving to work or something, even on the way home from yesterday, or I was out and about yesterday after work and stopped at the gas station and went in to get some snacks, and, there was a woman yelling at, the cashier or whatever, and is getting pretty heated, and I was like, things like that just happen all the time, and it doesn't matter who was walking in or not, that could have developed into something crazy.
Well, and it's those situations that really make you think about it too. Yep. And I think that happens to all of us, that we're kind of uncomfortable. I don't know what I was thinking. I went to the SHOT Show many years ago, and for whatever reason I took a wrong turn walking there, and I was in a parking garage, an empty parking garage, just walking through thinking everything would be all right, and all of a sudden it just kind of hit me that I had no idea who was going to come behind any corner. I had no training at this point, and it was terrifying. And so to be able to look back on that now and know, first off, I wouldn't walk into an empty parking garage if I was lost, but knowing that if something does happen, at least I'm slightly more prepared. I, can protect myself if the worst happens.
So what's, you talked about a little bit how you like you're continuing to train and learn and all that. So what's the next step for you, do you think? What do you want to get into next? Maybe more instructing, or maybe change over to carbine or carbine shooting or anything like that?
That'd be fun.
What's your next step?
Well, I'm planning on starting
to get her into co-ed classes.
Yes. I love to instruct. I love it so much. It's really amazed me how much I've loved it. And so I would definitely like to continue doing that. Just everything. I love to learn. And so taking the courses and the instructor courses and just the continuing education, I love it. And so I'd like to keep teaching, and I just got a new gun for Christmas, so I think I'm going to start competing and see how that goes.
Is this the X5 you were telling me about?
Yes,
okay.
I'm incredibly slow, so I don't know how well that will go, but I'm excited to start. And
awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull some other women into going with me so that I don't have to start on my own, but well, maybe I can drag Jessica into it too. She's got that military, self-defense shooting, so for her to start competing and do more bullseye shooting would be a big change for her, so I'm trying to drag her into it.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing we've talked about it before about the gun world, is that it's just so big. There's so many different avenues down which you can go. Like you said, hunting and long range shooting is completely different than handgunning, or even competition and bullseye shooting. Even in competition, there's IDPA, or there's bullseye shooting, and being able to try a little bit of everything is super cool. So
I'm excited. It's a big industry. And the greatest thing I found about this industry is that everyone's so friendly and welcoming. I haven't found one person in this industry yet who is not generous and super excited to help people move ahead. And here, shoot my gun. Here, you need this, or, offer advice. It's a very friendly, tight-knit community, and you got to love that.
So what do you think the biggest difference is between hunting and long-range shooting and handguns?
Oh, gosh. Well, the triggers. That's the biggest difference. Every time I start long-range shooting after I've been shooting the handguns for a while, I have to retrain myself on that very gentle pull on a 1.5 pound trigger versus my 8 pound trigger. So there's that. But otherwise, it's all the same basic fundamentals, focusing on the sights. You're looking through a scope in a long range, but it's basically the same thing. The breathing, you got to make sure the stance is right. Your trigger control is key, and they're a lot more similar than you would think. It's just that stinking trigger. That always gets me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're shooting 1,000 yards or farther, probably even, it's, you've got everything dialed in exactly the way it needs to be and everything. And I feel like a handgun's a little more broad of an application where, I think I've heard you guys talk about this when you're instructing the women, is that, you're not necessarily looking to go through this, shoot a round through the same hole every time.
Yeah.
You want to have a little bit more of a spread, so you're just defensively, it's more effective that way.
Yeah. And with a handgun, you're pulling that trigger in a defensive situation. You're just going to be pulling that trigger over and over and over again quickly.
Right.
So you need to quit focusing on getting holes through holes, which is what you'd be focusing on with a long range rifle. You're just looking for, in a self-defense situation, you just want to get those hits in the vital areas and stop your threat.
Yeah. A little more defensive of a philosophy.
Yeah. Or long range, you're concentrating very hard and shooting one and then resetting, and you have lots of time, and it's
and breath comes in a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, breath is proper breathing in handgun defense is very minuscule.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's even there.
Well, because your heart rate is going to be it's just elevated, and so you're going to be breathing heavier anyway, or breathing faster.
It's not even a consideration, really. But for long range, holy cow, that's like one of the biggest things.
Yeah, breathing's a big deal. You got to make sure that you're not holding your breath or panting right at the bottom of that breath.
So switching gears back to instructing, you can just tell from talking with you, you get a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment out of instructing.
Yes.
What's maybe your favorite story, or one thing that sticks out in your mind that where you've had the biggest impact with somebody with instructing?
Well, I don't know about a specific impact, but I just know on these, it's really satisfying for me to start these classes. The women are super nervous. They get a little comfortable during the classroom portion, but right before we switch to the range time, the live fire, they all get tense. There's a few that'll have a little bit of experience that don't really, it doesn't bother them, but you can just see the tension start and they get so nervous. And some of those women, when they start shooting, just when we're doing dry fire and just handling the gun, they're shaking so bad and just nervous as all get out. And to see at the end of the 2 hours of shooting that they're shooting comfortably and they're shooting well, all of them shoot well. I haven't had one that shot terribly yet. And they're just so happy that they could do it. They did it, and nobody died. There were no accidents. The gun didn't explode, and now they know how to handle it, and they can, go wherever they're going and show someone that, hey, I can do this, and I know you don't have to tell me. And they're glowing. And so to see the women who are complete newbies who have no idea, to see how satisfied they get when they leave, and when they come back. I see a lot of women go through the classes and I never see them again. Mm-hmm. But to see the women that come back and keep shooting and start shooting more and get excited about it, I love that. To see familiar faces again, that's extremely satisfying.
Well, and I want to put a plug out there that any women that are listening, or their husbands that are listening, it's so important. I've gotten so many women in that'll say, oh yeah, I took a class 2 years ago, but I have not touched this gun since because I've been scared to do it by myself.
Yeah.
And the class did nothing at that other than teaching them a little bit about the gun so they can know it theoretically.
Sure.
But they need the practical knowledge if they're actually going to utilize it. And that's why groups like the Independent Woman, groups like the Well-Armed Woman or Women of Caliber, these different groups that are around the country are so important. Mm-hmm. To join a group that's actively training and teaching and getting trigger time with a group with friends.
Yeah,
because it's hard, like you said, it's hard to go by yourself. It's
hard to go by yourself, and it's hard for women to find women to shoot with, because it's even though we're growing so much in the industry, there's still not a lot of us. It's like 10%. So it's hard to just go get your neighbor and go out and shoot, or have the, audacity to come in by yourself. A lot of the guys have no issue with it, but the women, I think they're scared that they think they'll be looked down upon, or people are going to laugh at them, or they're going to do something wrong, and it's going to ruin the experience for them.
Well, you have some women like Brenda Bruno, who is on one of our most.
She was on like the second episode ever.
Yeah. I love Brenda.
Yeah, she'll come in on her by herself, but it took her still a little while. And she's only been in the handgun world for 3 years, I think it was. Now it'll be 4 years, but 4 or 5 years. But now she's getting to that point where she's coming by herself, and she's very, very active. But she has the time to do it, and she has the experience now.
It's time. Time is a big deal for, I think, a lot of women. A lot of us are still in that domestic role where we feel that we need to be there to take care of the kids and the husband and the 4 million things that we have on our plates. We have jobs and all kinds of stuff going on. So it's hard for us to say, well, I'm going to take today and go down to the range.
And then you suffer with what you're suffering with right now.
Then there's empty nest, and the kids don't care that you're there anymore.
Well, and then you need to find it. Yep. Now it's time to shoot more.
Yep. I was going to ask, what do you think the biggest challenge right now in 2019, that women face in the industry, or that the industry faces? Because, like Ricky said, it's still kind of a male dominated, industry. What do you think kind of the biggest challenges right now?
Challenges, I think most intelligent companies in the industry are being extremely welcoming to women and starting to gear their products towards women, which is fantastic. We've seen so much growth in that sector, clothing, gear. It's awesome. But there's still the challenge of, we're an anomaly in the industry, and you get the established gentlemen who still think we're just decoration and it's just a silly hobby of ours. And, we're never going to be as good as they are, and it's really fun to show those guys up. But we still.
Do you think that group of people are the older group, or is it intermixed in the whole, like all different age groups of guys?
I think it's
because I'm wondering if it's going to eventually turn around.
Established and older.
Okay. You were trying to be.
It's a good subtle way of putting it.
Yes.
Sorry, that went over my head.
It's really. It's different, though. I think there's going to be guys who think women can't shoot, women shouldn't shoot. Thankfully, that's been a very
you have Annie Oakley back in the day.
Yeah, Annie Oakley was awesome. She's my hero.
Shot everyone. So,
but there's a lot of different things we have to deal with. And, working here, just dealing. I get called the sweetheart and the darling and you're just a.
They poo-poo you.
Yeah, it's.
See, that's frustrating even for me to hear. It doesn't happen to me, but that shouldn't happen to you. You know what I mean? Because I've seen you and Jessica shoot, and you guys can outshoot probably 90% of the people here. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's frustrating for us because a lot of guys turn it into we get leered at. I've had suggestive comments made, and it's
so irritating.
Oh yeah,
not
absolutely.
In the classes.
Not in the classes, okay. Absolutely not. But in the range counter, and unfortunately, that's just kind of part of our lives. We just have to deal with that. And
and that's another thing itself. Guys would never even think of. That wouldn't cross my mind because I mean, as guys, you get the whole puffing chests, and you have to this guy
posturing.
This guy is that character. Okay, now I'm gonna have to deal with that. But other than we don't get the same issues you're describing right now.
Yeah, we get the creepers.
Yeah, so that's frustrating.
It is frustrating, but unfortunately, it's kind of a part of our lives. Any woman, we all have to. It's part of the situational awareness thing. There's always creepers out there. You always have to be aware and just deal with it as it comes and. Write that person off, outshoot them, and move on with life.
Yeah, like you said, you can show them up on the range. Yeah, that's what matters. So.
Yeah, once they see how well we can handle a gun, they usually shut up. So it's kind of nice.
And see, I feel like you kind of, as you said, you're a little more soft-spoken. You let your work do your talking.
Yeah, yes, and it's very satisfying to be able to do that quietly and.
You don't just go about your day.
Yep. Don't have to rub it in. So
what would you say to, a woman maybe listening right now and she wants to get into shooting independently of any other situation, but she's never shot a gun before or anything like that? What's the first step that she can take to get involved?
Taking a class. That's absolutely the first step to learning. Then the gun doesn't become it's not such a big scary thing. And then after that, taking the initiative to come in on your own and shoot and practice. And if you're too nervous to take advantage of the resources that you have, we have the independent women. There's, like you guys said, the well-armed women's out there. There's clubs. If you don't want to dive into the clubs, there's forums, internet stuff you can research. But the big thing is taking action and coming in and shooting. And I tell all the women that take my basic pistol class, if you come in, you're more than welcome to. I'm always here, so get in touch with me. Come grab me. I'll shoot with you. If you're.
What if there's no women's group around them? Because I think of Brenda, like I was describing earlier. Everybody here is Brenda's friend.
Yes.
So when she comes in, she has friends. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of, even though they're not all women, mm-hmm. does that kind of fill that need a little bit? Would that? It
makes it a lot more comfortable. Okay. The more you come in and the more we see your face and realize that you're serious, and everybody here is welcoming to new shooters. We love new shooters, especially new women shooters. And I haven't seen a person here yet that's like, oh, let's turn them away or snub them. It's a very open and welcoming environment. The boys, the guys and the girls are very excited to help people and show them and answer questions. So yeah, if you come in often, get a membership, come in a couple times a month and just be seen, and you'll turn into a Brenda. They'll welcome you with open arms, and we'll try to convince you to start taking charge of our club.
I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, I guess this goes without saying, but for me, every single time I walk through that door, it's going to get easier than the time before. Mm-hmm. Every single time you get to know those people, and that wall comes crumbling down.
Yeah, and you get to know the process. I think a lot of women are intimidated by that's. I had never been to an indoor range until I started working here, mm-hmm. because I was intimidated. I don't know what you do when you go into a range. I don't know what the rules are, and I don't know if it's going to be a bunch of regulars that are going to be looking at me funny when I walk in. But if you take that first step and just come in the one time and shoot and learn the rules, and you kind of get the lay of the land, it gets easier and easier each time. So it's just getting over that first hurdle. Once you get past it, it's downhill.
Yeah, once you get out of your comfort zone once or maybe twice, then it's way easier.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and Jessica and I are almost always here, and we're more than happy to help anybody who's uncomfortable, who has questions. And it's very exciting to see women coming in and asking the questions, and if they need the help, then we're there for them. We do get busy, but we're still happy to help.
And how does somebody get involved with the independent women if they want to start coming to the classes and all that? How do they do that?
They need to contact Jessica. Jessica is the ultimate contact. They can contact me, but I'm going to refer them to Jessica. Her email is just jessica@iishooting.com. And there's information on the website too. The Independent Women has their own, I believe, link. We're in the process of transferring websites, but I'm certain that tab is still there. So they have a whole page dedicated to themselves, and it's extremely informative. And they can call in also, but email's the easiest way to get in touch with us, asking questions and joining the club. We have the Monday class at 10:30 in the morning. That's a fun class. A lot of empty nesters in that class. I love those ladies. They're sassy. And then there's the Thursday class. It's from 7. Yes, we have 7 to 8 is the range time. And I have that backwards. 6 to 7 is range time for those ladies. And then there's between 7 and 8, that's the classroom portion. And then there's another range time for the third group between 8 and 9. So there's a few options. We're trying to accommodate the women who can't come at night and can't come in the morning.
So no matter what your lifestyle, you should be able to find some time.
Hopefully. We're hoping to get as many women as we can in there. If we had a daycare, I think it would be key.
We need an addition. We need to build an addition to Independence.
Yes.
We need an extra wing, a podcast room, and
might be a challenge to get a daycare approved in the gun range. But,
Right. I've actually looked into it. It's ridiculous with Yeah, with the insurance we would have to go through.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's doable.
I mean, you think of the even the lead particulates that you get on the carpets, probably that.
I'm surprised that Ricky's actually looked into this. This is
yeah. Well, because we've had requests for it.
Yeah, well, that's one of the major holdbacks for these women trying to get the younger women in that have kids, the younger kids. It's impossible for them to come in because they have kids to take care of. So
yeah,
that's totally understandable.
I think of my wife, she wouldn't.
Yeah,
she wouldn't be able to.
And it's not that she doesn't have the desire; it's that she doesn't have the time, and you can't leave your little ones at home while you go shoot real quick. So
yeah, that brings up an interesting dynamic, or an interesting kind of extra angle to the whole thing. Is do you talk about kids and firearms in the women's class at all, and how that kind of all rolls together?
We'll kind of brush over it. Basically, we just in the basic class, there's so little time to go over everything extensively. So we just brush over how important it is to have your guns stored safely, especially if you have little kids. And I would imagine we address those issues a lot more extensively in like the independent women, where we can spend more time on it, where the basic pistol class is very condensed and we're trying to get so much information in there that,
right.
And we know they're not going to retain all of it. So in the independent women, it's a little bit easier to push that information, but when they have the questions about their kids, how do you carry with kids and things of that sort, we'll go over it. But I think a lot of women already have an idea kind of how they'll handle it. So
sure. How you got 4 kids?
Yes.
How have you kind of approached firearms with your kids?
Well, they've grown up around guns, and we've always pushed gun safety on them tremendously. I still keep all the guns locked up in safes. Every now and then we'll have a gun laying around, but the kids are adults. Sadly, kids are adults. So
how old is your oldest?
Oldest is 20.
Okay.
Yes.
So grandkids are on their way.
No.
Oh, jeez.
No, not for at least 10 years. But they're comfortable and they know not to touch. We've always taught that, don't touch. If you see a gun, get away from it. Let an adult know, things of that sort. We keep the guns locked in safes. Right now I'm trying to talk the oldest daughter, who has no interest in hunting or firearms, to take my class, because she's in college and it's a big safety issue in college. She's, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet and completely naive about the world. So I would really like her to learn a little situational awareness and she doesn't need to carry a gun if she doesn't want to, but to know how to do it and to be able to handle a gun maybe that's in our house, that if something were to happen and we weren't there, I would like to at least for her to have the knowledge. And then the other daughter, she's completely interested, just doesn't have the time. So
how old is she?
She's 18.
Okay.
So trying to get her. And then my son would like to go. He's also 18, and he's raring to go. We just have to find the time to get him in here. He just turned 18, so.
Oh, okay, very cool.
We'll get him.
Yeah, that's the tough part, I think, for anybody, is just finding the time. You gotta really make the time.
Yeah, and time's tough when they're in school and 4 million projects and activities. But
I've noticed, especially I feel with the independent women, that they have carved that time out for themselves. And you see the folks who come through every week, and I can just tell that's the time that they've carved out for themselves and say, this is my time to do this, and they've made it a priority. And you can tell that the improvement in the shooting is because they've made that, that time commitment, and they've made that time for themselves. So, and I think it's probably, you can tell that, like you said, they have fun and that they enjoy it, and they can kind of get away from the 4 million things that they have to do every day. And that's kind of what the joy of, the shooting sports is, I think, for a lot of people, is that you can kind of leave all your problems and all the crap you got to deal with during the day, at the door, and just enjoy kind of focusing on one thing. Yeah, 1 or 2 hours to yourself. I think it's hard for anybody, but I think women in particular, if you carve out that time for yourself, you feel guilty. It's like we're programmed to feel guilty about doing something for ourselves. So I think that might be a little bit of the holdback to some of the women coming in. We don't want to feel bad about, heaven forbid, taking time for ourselves.
I feel that way too, though.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not an all-woman thing. I'm
like, my wife will kill me. And actually, I do. A lot of times, I'm like, this guy is in here all the time, and I'm like, he has wife and kids somewhere, and I'm not saying anybody particular, but there's several of these guys. And I'm like, how does his wife let him do that? Like, my wife would kill me if I wasn't home helping her with stuff.
Well, that's what my husband always says. You would kill me if I do that. You would never let me. I'm like, I don't let you do anything. You just go do it. We're independent people here. So I don't know. I think it's just a dynamic. Maybe some guys are trying to get away from their wives. I don't know. You never know the story.
It could be it too. So like my now fiance knows that if I say I'm going to be home at a certain time, she usually tacks on another hour and a half after
double
that.
it.
Especially if it's at Independence.
Oh yeah, only here if it's at Independence. Everything else she knows I'm pretty punctual, but here it's usually that I get about an hour and a half, 2 hour grace period. So if I don't say anything. So, well, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
I hope you had fun.
I did.
Independent Woman, awesome group.
It is a good group.
Find Independent Woman on Facebook, Independent Woman ID, I believe. Or
I'm probably the worst person to ask the social media aspects.
Social media is run actually by the members.
Yes.
So
okay.
I can't even remember what it's called. I think it is.
It's in there.
I think you're right. Well,
you'll be able to
at the end.
You'll be able to find it at iishooting.com. It's right there. Independent Woman. Come into the shop. Say hi to Sarah. Say hi to Jessica.
Absolutely.
Awesome folks. They can outshoot everybody.
Yeah, we like to shoot.
So thank you so much, and thanks for listening. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions for Sarah or Jessica or Ricky or me, or want to get in touch with the Independent Woman group, just let us know. Podcast at iishooting.com, facebook.com/rangeminded podcast, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. So, but thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.